Hey guys, welcome back. A few episodes ago, I did a video about super expensive games that aren't actually all that fun to play. And for the people who are in the market for those types of games, I really do hope you get the opportunity to see it and hear a different perspective. Otherwise, you could end up wasting a whole lot of money. Well, after seeing that, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, which of the really expensive games are actually worth it? Good news! Today's episode is going to be all about super expensive, high-end Japan exclusives that will give you more than just bragging rights. Get your credit cards ready. First off is the legendary Shin Ray Juice Taromaru for the Sega Saturn. This game has generally been referred to as Psychic Assassin or Psychic Warlock in English ever since it was released. This is hands down the most expensive Sega Saturn game that wasn't some kind of limited edition, and possibly the most expensive period. I mean it when I say it plays like a treasure game. In fact, you can find rumors floating around that the lead designer was someone who had left Treasure, although that's a little too romantic for me to believe outright. It's a 2D platformer with a mix of sprite and polygon graphics, which depict an ancient Japan overrun with demons. Lots of bosses with tough, skill-based patterns, and learning to beat the game without continuing once won't happen overnight. The Wikipedia page states that there were only 7,500 copies made, and if you want to buy it now, you'll definitely have to pay at least $600 or $700 US, depending on whether you want the spine card and original sticker or not. But it will provide you with years of fun gaming, in addition to jealousy amongst your friends. My next pick is a Famicom game which really confuses me. Crysis Force is a vertical shooter by Konami, and I just can't see any reason to have not localized this for the Western market. The game is fast-paced with environmental hazards and backgrounds that change as the levels go on. A lot of effort clearly went into this game, and the best part is, it isn't an arcade port. It was developed specifically for the NES, so unlike Gradius or Salamander, it doesn't have to attempt to mimic a game made for infinitely stronger hardware. I'm not really a fan of the Gradius series, but that being said, I think this is definitely Konami's best 2D shooter. And on top of all that, simultaneous 2-player. Get it? One really interesting thing about the Sega Genesis is just how many obscure games got Western releases. Even so, we did still miss out on a few, and one of them was a game called Twinkle Tail. This is an overhead view shooting game in the style of Pocky and Rocky, developed by a company called WAS. I'm guessing it's the only game they ever made. Twinkle Tail has 8 perilous levels full of mythical creatures, a triumphant soundtrack, and a much more balanced difficulty than Pocky and Rocky. In fact, it's without a doubt the best game of this genre on the Genesis. Sadly, they must have made very few copies, because it goes for somewhere between $400 and $500, probably closer to $500 actually. But it's money well spent. Okay, here's one everybody already knows about. It's The Adventures of Little Ralph, or Chippoke Ralph no Daiboken for the PlayStation. This game is now famous among the retro gaming community thanks to Radical Reggie, who also frequently appears on the Metal Jesus Rocks channel, pushing it in several videos. And he's absolutely right. It is one of the best 2D platformers of any generation. Perfectly crisp control, big, engaging environments, multiple pathways and secrets, and it's hard as hell. But it does give you unlimited continues, so with some determination, it can be done. They really must have had some industry veterans, because a game of this caliber coming from a company no one had ever heard of just doesn't make sense. I paid a mere $120 for it with Spine Card 2 years ago, from a store. The auction price is now at least twice that. Reggie was definitely wrong about Gaia Seed, but he nailed this one. And now we move on to the big guns. Next up is Magical Popin for the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom properly as there was no Western release. Despite being released by Pack-In Video, a company not exactly known for their masterfully developed games, Magical Popin plays like a dream. It's a straightforward platformer with 6 huge levels, but you pick up an item in each of the levels that gives you some new ability, like a grappling hook to swing across pits or bombs to access new areas. Beautiful, colorful graphics, mid-bosses in every level, and the most reliable and satisfying jump momentum I've ever experienced in a platformer. This game will cost you at least $1,000 if you want it complete with the box and instructions, and it turns out there's a reason for this beyond game collecting. The woman who did the voice samples for your character, Iijima, was a well-known celebrity who started out as a porn star and died very young. She was basically the Aoi Sora of her time. She crossed over into regular TV and movies and had mainstream success despite her past. God only knows how she got this voice acting job, but her picture is also on the back of the box, which makes the game collectible to people who search for Iijima's old videos and related products, in addition to gamers. While it's not extremely hard, I honestly think it's one of the best platformers for the SNES. I happen to own a legitimate copy of Magical Popin, incomplete though, only with the cassette and instructions, no box. How did that happen, you ask? It's a long story, never mind. I'm throwing in one more title for this video, a bonus if you will. It's Guardian Force for the Sega Saturn. Radiant Silvergun is the best 2D shooter on the Saturn, but I have always been of the opinion that Guardian Force is the second best. This game is developed by Success, who made the Cotton games, and it's almost funny just how deep and detailed of a shooter they were able to make when they put their hearts into it. You control a tank that can spin its turret around 360 degrees, just like Forgotten Worlds, and trust me, you're gonna have to spin the hell out of that thing, because this game throws stuff at you from every direction. The bosses are massive, with multiple forms, and are rarely cheap. Okay, the very last boss is total crap, but the rest of the game is so great I can forgive that. The really funny thing is, until a few years ago, this wasn't a highly respected game. Stores wouldn't even keep it in the showcase. It would be out on the sales floor for around $40. For people who want to get into Japan-only shooters on the Sega Saturn, I can't recommend this enough. If you're serious about collecting retro games, and you want the ones that are going to be as fun as they are sought after, you've got to choose carefully. And if you're a quality over quantity kind of person, definitely put these games at the top of your list. That's going to be all for this video. As always, thanks for watching to the end. I hope you get everything you're after. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe, and check out my other social media, where there's lots more no-holds-barred retro gaming action. See you next time.